I said this before the break, and now I've given you plenty of time to think about it, folks. But if I'm looking at the obviously they pay Trevor Lawrence, and you come off that game where like, hey, Trevor played pretty well in that first half, just didn't have a chance in the second. You take ETN overall, and I know people are going to look at the fumble, but I think ETN, if you take the last couple of years, and then it's been good. Travon Walker is really coming on, and I'm going to show you some evidence of that in just a minute, but he's coming on. Devin Lloyd, nice positive sign the other day. It's a small sample, so it kind of works the opposite of the way my ETN is building, but maybe there's something to grab onto there with Devin Lloyd. And then you add in what Brian Thomas Jr., which by many accounts had the best rookie debut of anybody in the National Football League, some would say. And then if you want to throw in Anton Harrison, who really had a rough game, maybe his worst game as a pro, but last year showed a lot of promise that this guy's going to be in it for a long time. I mean, if you take those 6 players, Austen, over the last 4 years picked in the first round, this was an organization, remember, that had a hell of a hard time landing first rounders. And if you really want to go back to do that, I know 2020 was a disaster. That's like the poster child for it, with 2 misses with Chason and Henderson. But even prior to that, they obviously got Josh Allen, and Josh is now extended. But I just want to take these 6 guys over the last 4 years. What does it mean? Like, is that more of a sign that you can find a lot of good in those 6 players, or you think there's a lot to grab onto, and to some degree, like, there's stuff to grab onto. Others, you're maybe hitting and hoping a little bit about where this organization is, and sooner or later, no matter what, you can have a bad loss in Miami, or you might not feel great right now, but that's going to rise to the top when you do that well with your first rounders and you hit on players like that.
No, I mean, that's what it's all about, Brent, right? Is that you have to hit on your first rounders. You have to get, the bang for the buck, if you will. And I think for the most part, they have. Now, yes, he had probably his best game of the season against Miami. Best game of the season, his first game, but the best game of his career against Miami. But, there's still a lot to see with Lloyd because, it has taken a little bit to get here. With Trevor, obviously you made him the franchise quarterback, more power to you. With Travon Walker, we're always going back and forth. Who's the better player, Aiden Hutchinson or Travon Walker? And they'll probably be tied together until the day that they both retire. Right. And you can throw Kayvon Thibodeau in there, but honestly, Brent, once again, I don't know because I watched that Lions-Rams game and obviously Hutchinson was making a big difference as well. But I don't know who I'd rather have. I'm perfectly fine with having Travon Walker in Jacksonville. I don't think there's a drop-off between him and Aiden Hutchinson. I think they're both great players. I think they both make, they're difference makers for their teams. But I think Travon Walker fits Jacksonville nice. Wouldn't you agree? Would you rather have – and I get it. We can be a little biased, but, take off the teal-colored glasses quick. Would you rather have Hutchinson right now or Travon Walker?
Yeah. I've never thought, and I don't think it's teal colored. I've never thought, man, Jack should have taken Hutchinson, or man, I wish I had him. I really like Travon. I really like his skill set. I really see he's still ascending. I think Hutchinson is good, and no doubt, I don't think you could deny that. But I also think he might have he went 0 to 60 quick. You know what I'm saying? And I think we're just seeing a slower run to 60 for Travon Walker, but it's still going. He might get to 80. You know what I mean? I don't know where it ends for Travon Walker. I don't know if I see a TJ Watt 18 sack guy in Aiden Hutchinson, Austen. I'm not sure if he's that guy. I think he's a really good player, but I don't know if he's that guy. I can't tell you that Travon Walker isn't that guy yet. I don't know where the ceiling stops. Did we lose Austen? You might not have liked that.
He's there. I don't hear him anymore.
Oh. Might not have liked my commentary there. But we'll get Austen back on. Might just bump something. And but anyway, the bigger point for me, and I think that's a good argument, or not even an argument, but it's it's if you take year 1, 3.5 sacks versus Hutchinson, I think was around 10.5, something like that, or 9.5 it was 9.5. And just the way he did it in the primetime games, see, that's where Hutchinson really has made a name for himself. What he's done in the primetime games, I think when the TV cameras are on him, man, he's been good. And that's not a bad thing. That is not a knock. I'm just saying at the right moments, really good. I think Herbert had a little bit of this going back. And so what you build is this almost equity and rapport with people like, this guy's really good, you know? And I think if you deep dive on Travon, he's a much quieter player in that regard. He doesn't have his face painted, right? He's not representing the hometown and the Michigan, Detroit thing. The Lions have actually been better anyway. He fits perfectly with the Campbell stuff. Like, there's not that with Travon. But that doesn't mean he's not a good football player. And I think he's a really good football player. And I know Austen doesn't love the fact of moving him around, but the bottom line is he can play multiple positions on that front because he's that good of a football player. And he got off to a hell of a start with 2 more sacks. All right, we got you back, man. So sorry we missed you there for a second.
Yeah,
okay. But yeah, I think what I eventually said was I don't know where the ceiling is for Travon Walker. I think we're still figuring that part out. I'm not to tell you that I've seen the ceiling of Aiden Hutchinson, but I think we have a little bit more of an idea of where he's kind of settled in as a football player, which can be a very good end. I'm just not sure if there's still more in the tank for Travon that might be like elite kind of player.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I was really adamant about this when we were kind of dissecting that draft class and who do you take? Do you take Thibodeau? Do you take Hutchinson? Or do you take Travon Walker at number 1 because you're in desperate need of an edge rusher? And like, you know, my biggest thing was I think Hutchinson was the most NFL ready player just because, you know, the pedigree, how it went at Michigan, his style, it reminded me a lot of like the Bosa brothers. And I think you're seeing a guy who came to the NFL right away who, you know, understood it and, you know, is still ascending, but like kind of got off to the head start just because of the pedigree. And then you had a guy like Travon Walker who, you know, was playing all these positions and was playing with a lot of great players at Georgia and wasn't really counted on to be the guy all the time, if you will. And that's the thing that we have to keep on remembering, you know, as fans here is like, yeah, the guy had double-digit sacks last year. Yes, the guy has 2 sacks right now. He's still learning how to play the position. Okay, Hutchinson, like, yeah, he shifted a little bit too from the 3-4 to a 4-3, so he had to learn some new things. But, like, he's pretty seasoned now at defensive end, at the edge. Travon Walker is still learning the position, and he's learning it and playing at a very high level at the same time. So that's a rare commodity there. And then, you know, when it came down to Kayvon Thibodeau, I said this. I think he was the biggest boomer bust guy out of that group just because, you know, you see the athleticism, you see the get off, you see the bend, and it's like this guy can either be the next Von Miller or, you know, with the attitude, with the personality, he can fizzle out in a couple of years. And I think he had a good year last year. He was very productive. I still think it remains to be seen, though, like, can he elevate himself out of this, you know, out of this group of 3 to be the top guy? I still think he has a ways to go to do that. So, yeah, I mean, go ahead and give me Travon Walker. Give me the guy who's still learning the position, but is also playing the position at a very, very high level.
Brent Martineau, Austen Lane out in Vegas. Kim's Corner here as well on a Whataburger Wednesday. Kim, can we throw up this that full screen? Were you able to get that? Hey, look at that. You got it. Didn't even like budge, Kim. You were just like, hey, I got this. Don't worry. Very calmly did that. So, hey, I don't know if you can see this, Austen, but so here's what I did.
Okay.
I took his first 20 games. I think I did the math right here, too, but you'll get the idea regardless. First 20 games, which goes to his rookie year in 22, where he got 3.5 sacks. And then really the first 5 games of last year, I think, which was through the Buffalo game, if I'm not mistaken, in London, which, by the way, started to come on a little bit in those London games. But that's where I put the separator. And then the last 13 games that he's had, he has 10 sacks in 13 games compared to the 5.5 he had in the first 20. He's got 7 tackles for losses in 13 versus 9 in 20. He's got more quarterback hits in 7 less games than he did in the opening 20. And the pressures are getting closer and closer as well. So, I mean, to me, this is an indicator that Walker is on the rise, and I think it's a little bit under the radar how good he was at the second half of last year. I've said this a couple times on the show. It's a bit reminiscent of Trevor Lawrence back end 2022, and then the way he started in 2023 when you took that whole compilation of time bridging 2 seasons. I think we're getting a little bit of that right now from Travon Walker, and it's a hell of a sign, Austen.
We'll see what it looks like this season, Brent, right? Because you still have a guy who hasn't even reached his full potential yet. And like it really begs you to question, like, when he does reach that full potential, what will it look like? And I'm not trying to like over embellish it and say like the guy's like the next JJ Watt or anything, but you look at a guy like JJ Watt or even heck Joshua Hines Allen and like just how they can just take a game over. Or now you have TJ Watt doing the same thing in Pittsburgh. I mean, he had a great game if you watched the Steelers play on Sunday. You wonder what it's going to look like. And listen, and this has been my biggest gripe, I would say. I don't want to say gripe, but this is my biggest concern is, you have a guy who's still learning the positions and everything, who was asked to do a lot of different things at Georgia. And now he's kind of cemented his role as an edge rusher here in Jacksonville. And you've seen both of his sacks came from the edge. I was very leery of don't move him inside. Keep him on the outside, keep letting him grow a little bit, and then eventually when he gets that position down, then move him, right? Because it's almost like, there's 2 schools of thought here, Brent. Do you take a guy who is super athletic, who has all the capabilities, and you just move him around because he can handle it? Or do you take the guy and say, okay, we want you to learn this position first. Once you've mastered this position, then we can move you around a little bit and you can learn other stuff. Because I'm not calling him JJ Watt yet, but it reminds me a lot of JJ Watt, who was more brought in as a 3 technique, and that's where he was until he showed this guy is special. So let's go ahead and move him around. Let's go ahead and set him up on matchups where he can win every single time. Oh, and by the way, let's put him at tight end as well, too, in goal line packages. Eventually it got to that point. I hope they do the same thing for Travon. I hope it's really, all right, you're playing edge right now, you're playing defensive end, master this, learn this, and then guess what? If we play a team that maybe has a guard or like a guard center combination that's very, open for getting dominated, play in and play out, then move him down there as well.
Yeah, some people will throw some metrics out. I think there was a comment in the chat actually that isn't he a better run stuffer? Yeah, I think he's very good against the run. And Travon I think he had the best win rate, whatever the hell that is. These metrics, we can make something. But the run win rate or something was 54%, I think I saw, and that was the best in the NFL. So, listen, we get carried away with a lot of these numbers, but I get what they mean. I don't know specifically. I mean, if you add enough of them up, the bottom line is it supports the point I'm making. He's playing good football, and he is a wrecker in the run game too. Like, there are a lot of people last year, and even when some of the numbers weren't there, this is last year before he probably got on this hot streak, they're like, that dude changes every play on the defensive front.
Yeah.
And that's the kind of attention he gets. And they have 2 guys. Josh got a lot of attention, it sounds like, from the Miami offense. And so, and now you add Eric Armstead in, and it was a cool moment. Yes, as I was watching back the Travon interview, Stewart got him in the locker room on Monday, and somebody asks Travon about Eric Armstead. And as they ask, there's this huge smile that gets on the face of Travon, who, by the way, is usually very like low-key, subtle, stoic, if you will. And, I mean, he just like this glowing smile. And then he delivers an answer, and man, I loved it. I can remember a play. How much Armstead is going to help Travon Walker.
Yeah.
Said it in the smile to me, Austen. So I think, 1 game sample, obviously Armstead coming back into it a little bit. He'll probably take a few more weeks to kind of get up to full speed. But if this goes the way they envision it, that front should be really good.
Yeah, and obviously if you're Eric Armstead, if you're Josh Hines Allen, if you're Travon Walker, you're all excited because you know what the task at hand is when you have more than one great edge rusher, when you have an interior push who's a guy who's really good as well, everybody eats, Brent. Like those are fun defenses to play in. I remember playing, with the Detroit Lions and playing with Ndamukong Suh. Like, that was fun to play with because you understood that this guy's getting all the attention. Like, this guy, even if you double team him, you're not going to stop Ndamukong Suh. And that makes things so much easier on the edge. And when you look at, offensive coordinators trying to game plan now for this Jaguars defense and everything. And there's a lot of wrinkles and all this stuff. But like the first thing I'm looking at is how do we stop Eric Armstead? How do we stop Josh Hines Allen? How do we stop Travon Walker? And like, okay, you can script things to stop maybe one edge rusher, like a TJ Watt, like a Bosa, but how do you stop all three of those guys? And there's not an answer because you simply cannot. So when you're a defensive line and you know that you have that at your disposal, those are fun defensive lines to play with.